Thank you, everybody, for joining us. So welcome to today's webinar, Strategies for Adaptive Reskilling and Upskilling for the Workforce of the Future. We've got a very exciting discussion planned today. Before we get started, I've got a couple of very quick housekeeping things to go through. So first of all, this webinar is being recorded and it's being live streamed on YouTube. So if you can't make it to the end, or if you'd like to share the recording with one of your colleagues, we'll be sending that out probably later this afternoon. So keep an eye on your inbox for that. If you're signed up on LinkedIn, you'll also be receiving a message, any message there as well. Second of all, there is a Q&A session. So if you've got any questions for our panelists, please feel free to fire them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We have time saved at the end of today's webinar for that, but we also may answer them throughout the discussion. We'll see how we go. If we, for some reason, don't get to them, we'll be sure to answer them and send them into an email after today's webinar. And last but not least, there are some polls today. So please get involved, vote on the polls. Our discussion is going to be shaped around some of those questions. So I encourage you to get involved with those polls as they come throughout today's discussion. Now that those quick things are out of the way, it might be a good time to start by introducing our panelists. We've got two Roberts on the discussions. Just for everyone, we're going to be going Rob and Robert, so people know. So Rob, can you please give us a few words about yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Rob. I live in the Bay Area in San Francisco. Basically, I started in marketing in a fast-moving consumer goods, moved on to corporate university and the industrial giant, and then switched to ed tech, and I have been working in ed tech for about 18 years. So that's my experience.
Thank you. And now, Robert, can you please give us a quick introduction about yourself, please? Thanks, Rob.
Thanks. So I'm Robert. I'm from Warsaw, working here, stationed here, and I have some experience with customer relations in general, starting in the insurance business, then moving to more medical leaning stuff with Polish and international medical companies. Building back office processes there, and now for 4 years I'm happily married with this killer in the business tech IT HR capacity. So starting with support, then success, and currently doing in between of success and sales a bit. More of this connection. So that's my experience. I would say in total about 10 years of this experience that is customer related, and I'm looking at this from this customer perspective side as well.
Yeah, very much looking forward to tapping into that knowledge. So thanks for that, Robert. And finally, Rolana, can you give us a quick intro about yourself, please?
Sure. Hey everyone, my name is Rolana. Currently, I work as a business development manager at Clever LMS. Previously, I was working in recruitment, and basically for 8 years, I've been working with HR and EdTech industry. So today, I'm probably going to focus on e-learning and digital learning, and we'll be glad to share more about that.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for those introductions. So as I said, we've got a lot to get through today. We've got plenty of questions planned. We've also got these polls, of which I'm going to launch our first poll, which should be appearing on your screen right now. And the question here is, which of the following skills do you believe to be the most critical for the workforce in the next 5 to 10 years? This is a multi-choice question, so you can vote for multiple things. We've got digital literacy, data analysis, AI and machine learning, cybersecurity, emotional intelligence and soft skills, creativity and innovation, project management, critical thinking, leadership and people management, or other. As I said, you can vote for more than one. We just want to get a bit of a forming kind of poll and background here before we jump into our first question for Rolana. So, and I can see that's almost all of you have voted. So if you're just joining, or if you've got it on another screen, please cast a vote, and we'll share the results in just a few moments. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll and share the results, which should be appearing on your screen now. And we have a tie for first place. And it's actually quite an interesting tie. So we have AI and machine learning with 70% and critical thinking, the other top place getter with 70%, which is quite interesting because you think about the application of AI at the moment. Probably the one area that it really doesn't apply to is critical thinking. So let's jump into our first question, Rolana. I wanted to get your thoughts on the poll. So how can organizations effectively integrate the development of these skills that we saw in the poll into their reskilling and upskilling programs?
These are some interesting results, actually. It's hard skills versus soft skills. And I'd say with hard skills, everything is much easier than with soft skills because basically you can just provide the knowledge, you can give assessment, you can easily give this information to someone and assess this information. But when we're talking about the soft skills, this is much more challenging because there is no one proper way to ensure that someone will actually develop a critical thinking, because I personally think unless someone has an internal motivation to commit to obtaining that skill, because how do you develop critical thinking? It's probably that you receive some knowledge from your company, right? You go through the course, but after that you have to constantly implement these practices, the exercises that were shared with you, this information basically. And if you do not do that, then you will not be able to develop this skill. So if we're talking about AI and machine learning, I would say, there are like what you can do is definitely to go with any like digital or online course. It could be something bought from the third provider if that works for you, or which is actually the best way if this is possible, is to ask your internal experts to share their expertise and build the course, because with learning management systems nowadays, it is very easily done. You can record the videos, you can share the documents, you can create quizzes in there. And of course, it would require a significant amount of time to build these courses. But in the end, you are able to share the best practices, the use cases from your business, not something, external. And that would definitely give you some great results afterwards. And if we are talking about critical thinking, my recommendation here is probably that you always have to schedule some review sessions after the training course and to provide the assignment to people. Like, for example, after the course in a month, you have this review session and you gave the assignment before that you have to implement these strategies into like an amount of situations in your work life. So these people, they will keep that in mind, that they will have to tell you something in a month. And then probably if you are able to repeat it a couple of times just to, that make it stick with them, just to make sure that the knowledge actually sticks and they will be used to always use it in their in different situations in their life, then this is probably is something that can lead you to success.
Yeah, there's plenty of things to unpack there. Interestingly, when we talked on a webinar earlier this year, we had a webinar focused on AI and how this is sort of impacting the workforce and stuff like that. One of the key areas that we talked about that AI kind of, a lot of people are scared about, is AI going to take my job? Is AI going to take my job? The one area that our panelists all agreed on was that critical thinking is the one area right now, and probably for the foreseeable future, that AI really can't impact our people's jobs or people's work. So this is probably a skill that people should be thinking about developing as if you talk about professional development and stuff like that. So it's very interesting that the poll showed that they were the top two results. So yeah.
I definitely agree.
Okay. Thank you, Rolana, very much for that. We're gonna shift gears a little bit here, and I'll bring this one next to you, Robert. We're going to talk a little bit about skill gaps here. The question here is, how can organizations effectively identify the skill gaps within their current workforce?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question from the standpoint of where we are now and on the HR IT market, especially, like coming from my background and my current view of that is that the companies really struggle with identifying even the taxonomies that they have, and I'd say that's the cornerstone. So defining a taxonomy of skills within your organization, that's the first thing you need to do if you want to be really data driven, if you want to achieve something that is really measurable and that is really telling, that is really that can really be further used to boost these programs that Rulana was talking about, right? Because when we're talking about learning and education and the development of skills, the first thing you need to do is really go very deeply into, like, for example, like, who's a Java developer at your company, right? What they do, down to atoms, down to really particular skills. So I'd say, if the question is what can organizations do to identify these skill gaps, first they need to know what they really should have to operate, right? This is the base knowledge that they should be working on. And then through effective deployment of tools that are on the market, of these, as Rulana mentioned, LMSs, but also down to even ATSs in the pre-screening processes. When you are doing some sort of a technical screening or screening in general, these results would have to be then put into some system to have a base, and then based on that, do evaluations with your workforce, do the trainings, because the trainings will also tell you that they're not only for the betterment, but they can also serve as a benchmark as to what your current situation is. But I'd say there are many tools of the skill mapping type, a skill taxonomy creation tools that can really boost that. So establish your skill taxonomy, work within that, onboard your employees into the system, then work on the data you get. This is my point of this would be my advice to any entrepreneur, any technical recruiter, or even a technical manager or manager in general. Leave the technical, but in general, managers, if they possess the right knowledge, they can target the skill gaps with the learning programs, with mentorship programs, and I'm sure that would be really measurable and useful for the companies right now.
Yeah. We talk about it at DevSkiller as the as is to be kind of formation. So you need to understand first and foremost, what are the skills and the current competencies of your workforce, and what are you going to need. And a lot of times people think of what we need before they even understand what we have. So this first and foremost need to start off with this base, as you said. So thank you very much for that, Robert. And you mentioned learning, and I'm going to shift gears a little bit here about learning paths. I'm going to bring this one over to you, Rob. Just make sure that everyone's clear. We got Rob and Robert. So Rob, question here for you is, what are some successful strategies for implementing personalized learning paths in an organization?
So first of all, you kind of need to approach it from both the individual and the team and the organization levels. So basically, you conduct a skills assessment, you set personalized goals, and you make sure that there are regular feedback loops within. Then the second, obviously, you want to leverage technology, and that could be using effectively, as it was mentioned, the LMS. It also could be the adaptive learning technology. And recently, obviously, AI, machine learning in a diagnostic, as well as providing the learning to individuals and teams. You want to capitalize on the mobile and remote learning options. You want to offer a variety of learning modalities. You want to mix the blended in class and just-in-time delivery. You want to probably use the mentorship and coaching if you can, and have a systematic approach within the organization. You also need to combine the organizational objectives with individual agency, where the employee agency and driving their own learning is very important. And you achieve that by empowering them with choice and providing all the choices. Obviously, you do all of that within the context what the organization needs, not only what they need today, but also what is going to be needed in the future. Because obviously, that is very dynamic picture, and you've got about 30% of the skills that were relevant in the past are going to disappear and you've got about 10% change year to year. So it's very dynamic picture, and you kind of it's a moving target basically. And then finally, you want to track the progress and the outcomes and what's happening, and that's related to having that good taxonomy that was mentioned, and having a good picture what we've got, what we don't have, and then tying individuals within that and showing them career path. If you want to be a project management in the future, this is a track you should take. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yep. Thank
Justin,
you.
Justin, if I might add one thing, I
Yeah,
think it's very important to because I mentioned, Rob, that it's important to know what you have in the organization, right? But I think first and foremost, you map the skills that you have. But it might also happen that in doing so, you'd identify some skills that you didn't even know you had, right? I mean, this may be a process of like discovering your organization's hidden potentials, right? And from there, you can build really good career paths based on like what you see people have, and you can propose some, paths based on the knowledge that you uncharted by, adding all these additional levels of the taxonomy, like additional skills from your current workforce, right? This is just I wanted just to mention that because it comes up more frequently with the customers that we have and with partners that I'm talking to.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think the other interesting thing that Rob mentioned there is about the life cycle of skills. This is something that we talk about all the time, where the life cycle of skills is getting shorter and shorter, particularly when we're talking about digital and technical skills. I think IBM released the report that some skills have a half-life of 2.5 years. So basically, in 2.5 years' time, or 2.5 years ago, the skills that you learn might not necessarily even be applicable, like have business applications. So that's why these learning paths and career paths are so important to keep people learning the skills that are needed for the future for your workforce. This is really important stuff. So, and I do see some questions firing in the Q&A as well. Please continue to do so. We will get to all of those questions at the end of today's discussion. So don't think we're not going to get to them. We're going to get to them at the end. So we are going to shift gears a little bit here and talk about mentorship as a particular strategy with learning. But before we do so, I'm going to launch our second poll here. For some reason it doesn't want to launch. Hold on 1 second. That's probably why. Okay, launching the second poll. I forgot to end the first poll. Apologies for that. So the second poll here is: what do you believe is the most significant benefit of mentorship programs in the workplace? Enhanced skill development, improved employee retention, leadership development, increased employee engagement, or other. This is a single choice option this time, so you're going to get one vote. And then we will again share the results on your screen, but this time remember to end sharing them. So it's only about not even half of you have voted, so please cast a vote if you're just listening in, and then we will jump into our next question. Okay, I'm gonna let it run for a couple more moments because there's still a few more of you to vote, but it looks like it's kind of tapered off. So I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So what do you believe is the most significant benefit of mentorship programs in the workplace? A resounding 75% of you voted enhanced skill development. We also got some votes for everything else, including employee retention, leadership development, increased employee engagement. So thank you for casting the votes there. I'm going to stop sharing that one and close the poll here. I'm going to stay with you, Robert, actually, if we talk about mentorship programs. So as a particular strategy with learning. So how can mentorship programs be structured to maximize their impact on employee development?
Well, I'd say that you need to start with the mentors. You need to show them that it's really helpful for them. So showing the benefits to both the mentor and so the tutor and the lecturer, right? These are the two most important things I think to address here, because these two, are gonna basically coexist together. Like their collaboration is the mentorship. So I'd say defining clear goals and showing the potential upsides of that mentorship program. How you would structure it, that's the second thing. But I'd say, again, starting from the groundwork, establishing that, and how else you're gonna define that? Like even join someone for the mentorship program if you don't have a skill taxonomy. So again, to that, but once you establish that, of course, the way you could structure it is what Rob mentioned, defining a clear goal and also tracking the progress, because I would say this is the most important thing. So setting some KPIs, that's very important for both the mentor and the mentored person, and tracking the progress, agreeing on certain terms, and especially the communication from the leadership side, I would say should be very clear and very structured by the management to basically facilitate that.
Thank you. Rolana, what's your thoughts, Steve?
Just to add on what Robert has said, I just wanted to share some case that we had with the client. So basically they had their own mentorship program called Women in Green. Maybe you heard like Women in IT. Basically, this is very similar. So what they did, they actually had some events for everyone, like every participant of the mentorship program, because people who are chosen as mentors, they are usually C-level people that have a lot to share with everyone. So basically there is a common knowledge that could be valuable for everyone, no matter of their role or their personal mentor. And then they would also have some one-on-ones, like personalized mentorship path with each mentee in there. So this is what they did, and that was very efficient because, at the end, most of the participants of these programs, they were promoted to higher roles. So maybe you should also consider having some like common knowledge sharing as well as the personalized path. And another thing is, of course, I'm going to talk about moving everything to digital. So everything that Robert mentioned, like goals and KPIs and overall the schedule of the program, the events, etc., it is better to have it in one place, like an LMS or any other system that you have, so that both mentee and mentor will have a clear picture, and it actually will make them more disciplined, right? Especially for the mentors, because it is better for them to know everything in advance. And another thing that, these systems, most of them nowadays, they have their mobile apps, and it really makes it more convenient. For example, if we're talking about things like assignments, then the mentor can do it wherever. They often work from their phones. Maybe they're sitting in their airport, and they would take 15 minutes just to check an assignment from their mentee, give them a feedback. And if we're talking about tracking progress, you have everything in one place. So at the end of this program, you can track everything, like the results of the courses, the assignments, etc. So it gives you some numbers for the L&D, for the HR to really assess these programs and address any gaps, and in the future make some analysis like this year versus past year, etc. Because without it, you don't know how it performed and you don't know how to actually make that better.
That's why the data is so crucial, right? I mean, this is just the data-driven approach is the thing right now, and that's a very good reason, I would say.
Yeah, I think the value of mentorship programs can't be understated. In research for this webinar, I was looking up some statistics. I have one here. 84% of US Fortune 500 companies have mentorship programs, and I think 100% of, like, I can't remember if it was the top 100 Fortune 500 companies have mentorship programs. So I think it's pretty telling to say, like, if all the big players have these programs in place, it's kind of telling that this is a really valuable process to be implemented in an organization. So, and it all starts with data, as you guys said. So thank you very much for those insights there. Rolana, I want to stay with you, talking a little bit more here about continuous learning. The question here is, what are the best practices for creating and sustaining a culture of continuous learning in an organization?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I think if you want to create continuous learning, you have to make it independent of from the people. that are, working at the organization, because we all know that people are leaving, get promotions, moving to other countries, etc. So it is crucial to build a business process that will be independent. And to do that, you have to have it somewhere, not on paper, right? I'm going to talk about learning management system again and again, because it will allow you to actually create all of your training programs, to have all of your data. It won't be lost. It won't be dependent on someone, and it actually will reduce the manual efforts. And it makes the life of L&D and HR teams easier because, for example, you can make the repeated programs that will just appear every year in the LMS for each employees, and you don't have to do it manually, to check it manually, to schedule. So it will happen without your involvement. So basically, if you are going with online courses, or even if we're talking about hybrid approach, because many organizations use it because it is basically efficient, but you have some online materials and you have some live webinars or face-to-face. This is, a hybrid approach that makes it work really well. So definitely what you have to do is to make it digital. And the second point, I think it is important to make people enjoy the learning process. This is how you build the culture. And maybe you have to think about some gamification approach. This is something that worked really well for our clients. So they saw, boost in engagement, in team performance. So what they would usually do is to give their people points for finishing learning materials, surveys, tests, and courses, and then they would give them something in return of these points. There could be different cases. For sales, it could be some financial bonuses, and it could be something like corporate merch or breakfast with the CEO, day off, Netflix subscription. Like, each customer knows what works the best for their people, and they make it really visible. They have a leaderboard of the best people. It could be overall the company or in a department in a specific region. They have their points. They have their gift store right in an LMS where they go, and they, just as an online shop, they would go and buy something in exchange for these points. So finding the ways of making this process more interesting and engaging for people is also very important to build this continuous learning approach to our company and culture overall.
Yeah. One of the things we very interesting, you talked about the gamification process. It's definitely something that we're seeing more and more. But one of the things we've talked about in the past as well when it comes to continuous learning is developing a culture of continuous learning really starts at the top of an organization. So this is something that really starts with leadership. So it's a top down kind of approach. If you're the leadership team and C-suite's not into this learning culture, it's not really going to work. So this is kind of a bit of a segue into what we want to talk about now. So I'm going to bring it back to Rob, and thank you, Rolana, for your insights there. Talking about the topic of leadership, Rob, question here is, how can leaders encourage and model lifelong learning within their organizations?
Yeah, and that's definitely an important question. I think the leadership's role in the continuous learning is critical. I would say at a team level or within the organization, definitely you want to lead by example. Um, Actually, one anecdote that I came across when Netflix introduced the vacation policy, when you could take as much of a vacation as you want. What they found out pretty soon was that if the leader within the team was applying that policy and was taking the vacation, the team would follow. If they didn't, the team wouldn't follow. So they basically they were following the lead, so to say, pun intended. So if you are a leader in your team, you want to show to your team that you're taking learning seriously, that you have, despite all the challenges and all the different uh, things on your plate, you still find the time to learn yourself. You share that learning with your team. um, you also have time to mentor others, and you are expecting it from a team members. So it's kind of both expected and rewarded. And then obviously as a leader, you also need to communicate, and you need to translate the organizational goals to your team goals and to balance them with the individual's objectives, where they want to go with their career. So that's very important link that as a leader you have. Creating a learning-friendly environment, what it means in practice, there is access, there is an agency, there is a recognition. You provide resources, you allocate the time, and you obviously encourage the knowledge sharing. And basically facilitate learning from the peers, make special training events, promote the projects that are actually based around learning, team up people with different skill sets. So there's a lot to do. Obviously, there's also information overload. So sharing those experiences or vouching for some good training initiatives that are happening outside of the organizations, or even bringing that knowledge back to the team and sharing it with the team. Those are some of the strategies. Leveraging technology, that would be another one. Leveraging e-learning tools, learning applications. So again, now the one that is obviously came up in our poll is a focus on human skills or soft skills.
Soft skills, yeah.
That's very important because in again the information overflood and all those skills you could be learning, you need also to focus on like the critical thinking of this is almost complementary, like you need to switch on your critical thinking to move ahead and acquire knowledge and skills and where we go with that. So yeah, I mean, there are many ways under consideration that you need to take into um, consideration. The leaders central within that time frame, because they by example, by leading by example, they're showing the path to the team, and the team is going to follow. So that's basically the model.
Yeah. I think I might just stay with you quickly because we have this question here about from Ivan talking about, as assessment and development of skills would be driven by leaders, wouldn't the development of leadership skills be crucial in order to ensure that learning and assessment development is done expertly? So this, what's your thoughts on this one? Staying on the topic of leadership.
So it's leadership is basically central and coming back and kind of especially within and so there are basically two paths. There's that hard skills that we need to learn, and as we mentioned before, they're very tangible and easier to measure. And then you've got the leadership skills that are much harder to measure. But yeah, and they are probably easier to measure over a long period of time. So one of the metrics you would say would be how many good leaders come out from that team or that organization. Um, Again, this is long-term thinking versus short-term thinking. And because in a short-term thinking, you obviously want to optimize the performance of your team, and you want to focus on today. While with the long-term thinking and the leadership, you should be thinking like, how can I grow my team? How I can make sure that the members of the team are acquiring some of the skills that are going to be needed a year from now or 2 years from now, as opposed to today.
Yep. Thank you, and I hope that cleared things up for you, Ivan. So we're going to move forward. We've got a few more questions planned here. So if you do have any more questions that you'd like to ask our panelists, please feel free to fire them into the Q&A as you've been doing. But I'm going to bring this next question to you, Robert, about talent development. And the question here is, what are some innovative approaches you have seen from other industry leaders in terms of talent development?
Yeah, so again, with the data-driven approach, because I would say that any coachings you give, this should really rely on the data. And that's that's how it should look like, because this is really telling you something. This allows you to have a continuous development, as Rob and Rulana both mentioned. If it stays in the system, then L&D can work with that, HR can work with that. This is this is for them, and this is a multi department collaboration on the facilitation of data, which is really crucial. This is one thing I wanted to mention, because so with the data-driven coaching, really, and where it corresponds to some vaster strategy, and what are the conjecture points, like what are the joints of all these processes within the organization. But the another thing is, surprisingly, over the years, I've noticed that many leaders in the industry, companies like Microsoft, like Google, like many of our customers that are really big tech leaders, have these internal talent marketplaces, which I would say there are really a revolution in the terms of how you can approach the developments internally. When you look at reskilling, upskilling opportunities in the companies, especially with these taxonomies in place, the internal marketplaces where they can actually fish for opportunities of growth. I would say it boosts not only the confidence of current employees, but also the retention is skyrocketing. It's basically on the levels unseen before. Even with the current state of the market, I'd say it just gets stickier in the organization. If you can deliver this internal talent marketplaces, whether they are job based or project based, even like new challenges for the employees is the new way forward. And it's something fresh that they can stick to, not looking outside, not having to resort to basically going for the market, but the market is internal, and that's I would say, a revolution really right now.
Yeah, very much so. Thank you for that. We're going to move forward because we're sort of pressed for time a little bit to see here. So I'm going to bring it back to you, Rolana, talking about collaboration between HR professionals and business leaders. So the question here is, how can HR professionals and business leaders collaborate to enhance their L&D initiatives?
Well, I would say that requires an proactive and open position from each side, because HR is not aware of all the problems that business faces unless they come and tell them about that, as well as business is not aware of everything HR is doing and facing. So it is very important for business to come with a straightforward request, so they know that they have certain knowledge gaps or skill gaps in their team. So they come to HR and they tell that I think that we need these and these, like courses and programs, or what can we do to upskill these employees. And together they can work on choosing the right approach. So they can work on maybe choosing some external program, or maybe on developing internal training course. And in this matter, it is also important for them to keep this proactive approach and always provide the feedback, because they all have their own competences they can add to each other. And it is important for business to give some feedback in terms of some expert knowledge. So maybe they can tell that this is not relevant, let's remove this information from here. And HRs, they can share some best learning approaches, that maybe sort of assignments that they would recommend that they've seen perform good with other departments. So if both sides are open and they are proactive, then they would definitely create some successful initiative together.
Yeah, it's very much
as easy as that.
Going to be. It's got to be an open-minded approach from both sides, I would say, like any good level of collaboration. Thank you for that. We're gonna launch actually our final poll for today. So let me just do that now. We're talking about metrics for our next question, but the question here is, which area do you believe is the most important for measuring the success of reskilling and upskilling efforts? We've got employee performance, talent retention, employee satisfaction and engagement, ROI on training programs, or other. You can just see now, if you're watching, please cast your votes. There we go. Starting to roll through now. I'll let that one roll through, and we'll get to our final couple of questions here for today's discussion. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this entire session is being recorded. We're going to send that out, I hope, by this afternoon, if not definitely tomorrow. So keep an eye out on your inbox for that one. I can still see there's a few of you here, but I will let it run for a little bit longer and end the poll now and share the results on the screen. So, final poll, which area do you believe is the most important for measuring the success of reskilling and upskilling efforts? We got a 50-50 split between employee performance and ROI on training programs. So I'll stop sharing that and end the poll. And I'm going to move this question towards you, Rob, for our final second to last question here about metrics. So what metrics should organizations use to measure the success of their reskilling and upskilling efforts?
So in terms of metrics, obviously there's always a tension between those that are easy to figure out and measure and those that are much harder to figure out and measure. Then there's another tension that's obviously between what makes the waves, right? Definitely the return on investment is something that your financial leadership within the organization is going to be into here.
That's interesting.
Now in terms of simplicity, the completion rate, if your team or your employees started and didn't complete the training, that's a huge red flag. You want to measure the performance before the training and after the training. That one is a little bit harder sometimes. You want to measure things like application of the skills on a job. Longer term, you also want to see whether there is any connection between the training and the promotion and advancement of particular individuals on your team. The one that is easier to measure, however, it's very subjective, would be the feedback and satisfaction from the training. The one that is critical, probably in the same bucket as a return on investment, would be turnover and retention rates for the employees. Now, the one that is also very important but trickier to measure would be how long it takes between when you start engaging in a training and you're competent. And that's a tricky one to measure because, there are other factors that you need to take into consideration. And another one that might be also you want to keep an eye on would be how much innovation comes out of the team after they're trained. So yeah, I think metrics is really important to figure it out. It's equally important as having the skills taxonomy and having those mapped. Because ultimately you want to know where it's heading and what is the return.
Yeah, definitely. I think interestingly as well, Rolana mentioned. So I'm going to bring this question back to you, Rolana, in just a moment. But you mentioned this point of gamification. So we're talking about training programs and stuff like that. One of the strategies definitely for seeing higher return on the training and being able to measure effectively is possibly to gamify gamify the process. But I wanted to hear, Rolana, maybe your thoughts on metrics and measuring the success of upskilling and reskilling programs. What do you think?
Well, actually, Rob mentioned almost all of the metrics. I just maybe have a couple to add. I'd recommend maybe looking at a downtime. So this is the time that, employee, mentee, or mentor spend on learning or teaching. So they are not doing their actual job, right? They are not doing their direct responsibilities. So it will be beneficial for a company to develop a program that will be efficient and at the same time reduce the downtime. So this is something you can take a look at, because time is money, especially if we're talking about C-level people. Their hour is quite expensive. So it may be really cost efficient if you can reduce this metric. And employee satisfaction. So just, always gather feedback after your training programs to see what works, what they like, what they do not like, and just try to always improve your training programs.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we're gonna get just towards our final question for today, and then we'll jump into the I think there's only one in there, the Q&A question at the end. I might start with you, Robert, talking about outlook here. So how do you foresee the landscape of workforce skills evolving over the next decade, and what should organizations do to prepare now?
Prepare for the coming of the new skills. Prepare for the fact that most of your workforce will have to be reskilled. Create funnels, create processes, strengthen your existing approach. Focus on the education. Be mindful that your workforce, either with great retention, is not going to be there forever. So build strong processes for the organization to endure and to be prepared for the new wave of skills, reskilling, upskilling programs through mentorships and through the introduction of LMSs. I'd say this is my perception of moving forward in the tech industry, that we're going to look at rapid reskilling in the next few years with the advancement of, because AI is advancing right now, but it's going to be plugged into every system that's possibly pluggable into, right? I mean, it's going to facilitate everything. So the game will change, and it is changing now ever so slowly, but it's going to be more rapid. And I'd say prepare for the highest speed chase, but you're going to be there and you're going to handle it if you have everything set right, if you have the right processes, pipelines, that is just going to flow through that, like water through a well-established like riverbed. So I'd say prepare for the future with building strong pipelines, processes, and introducing all these tools that we talked about, all these structures with your organization.
Yeah, I wanted to add something before I go to you, Robert, about the AI and the impact on the workforce. This is something that we discussed in the past, and one of the critical things to look at now is looking at the structures and the workflows that AI and the skills that AI will replace. And you look at your existing workforce and say, how many of the skills do we have right now that will be replaced by AI, and how many of the skills do we have right now that won't be impacted by AI? And if you have a huge bucket of skills right now that will be automated and will be impacted by AI or automated by AI, it might be time to start thinking about reskilling these people into different areas that won't be so impacted by AI. This is probably the most critical thing that we're going to look at in the next 5 to 10 years, is how many processes and how many things will be automated by AI and generative AI. So definitely something to think about. Robert, I wanted to get your thoughts on this one as well. I'm going to get everyone's thoughts on this final one. Rob, sorry, apologies.
Oh yeah, so I think there is definitely a lot of dynamism and change ahead, and paradoxically or not paradoxically, what it brings is also the need for those human skills and the leadership, and leadership in a way becomes the secure base in the world of chaos. So you've got the interaction between the two. Obviously there are going to be there's going to be technology, human interaction involved with AI as well. critical thinking that we raised in the poll is going to be, where to apply what and why. That would be definitely something to look at in the future. So yeah, I mean, those would be the key ones.
Yeah. Rolana, sign us off on this one, please. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah. So I agree with what both Robert and Rob said. Well, first of all, there will be a new skill set that we might not be aware of because, AI wasn't at a stage like a few years ago, and now it's basically everywhere. And then the second thing is that soft skills is something that would be really valuable in the future. And regarding what businesses can do, in my opinion, they have to be flexible and to be able to adapt to changes really fast. For example, if we're talking about learning, we can see that over the past few years, the approach to learning, it has changed because currently many companies, they switch to micro learning because this new generation, it's used to short videos thanks to Instagram, TikTok, and things like that. So it is hard to retain their focus for like an hour or make them read like a few pages of material. So what companies do, they switch to micro learnings and they create really short videos, and that works better with this generation. So this is what important to understand, just to try to analyze who works for you, try to analyze the trends and keep up with that and be able to apply these changes really fast because, it can change in 2 years. So we do not have much time to actually switch to something. We have to be very fast.
Yeah, proactive approach first and foremost. Springs to mind when I think about the short attention spans of Seinfeld with George Costanza trying to learn the risk management process in one of the episodes. It just came to my mind. Anyway, I got a couple of questions in here. I might actually bring this one back to you, Robert. The first one here, which is about mentorship. Mentorship. So the question here again is, to what extent should the protege be involved in the design of the mentorship program?
Well, it really depends, I'd say. Whether the company wants to involve them, or it really depends also on the scope of the program. I'd say to an extent that is really necessary, because I understand that it would be in the construction, like it has to be in some part personalized to a certain degree, I'd say. But the exact degree, it's you have to have some feeder for the mentorship program, right? You have to have some process established, and then based on what particular skills they flag that they need to be mentored at, I'd say that's the extent. I would say the data that they provide should be something to lean on when creating this, when tailoring this mentorship program to the individual needs. So I'd say, again, data-driven, and the data will tell you exactly to what degree we need to lead this process towards the individual needs of this protege.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And last question here, I might go to you, Rob. The question here is, how do you encourage employee willingness to change their jobs regularly in response to AI development?
How to encourage employees to actually yeah, I mean, that's obviously where you need your human skills and soft skills. The reason I'm calling them human skills because there's a latest theory that that's better term for soft skills. I mean, but throughout all my career, they were the soft skills, and again, the argument would be that some of them are not that soft.
Yeah.
But basically, you need to know your team. You need to really, as a leader, down there, you need to know what make them tick, how to push them in a way that they don't feel pushed, how to listen. So basically, where they want to go. You also need to realize that they may change their mind. They know something today where they want to head, and half a year from now they may change their mind. and you need to be fine-tuned to that, flexible, and kind of push their buttons. In terms of mentoring and coaching, you also you have to realize that it's a two-way street. I mean, some of the people, experts in the field, are even recommending that you sign a contract when you coach. I mean, as far as you know, what is the outcome of the coaching. And I think also the ultimate competency that you can show as a coach or a mentor is in the skills, is that you are able to pass those skills to as many people as possible. So I think it is important at a leadership level to know your team and to know what makes them tick, what motivates them, and how to leverage that.
Yeah. Regularly checking in, I guess, is probably something else to add there. We can't understand what your employees are thinking without sort of doing these feedback programs and stuff like that as well, which is critical to keep going as regularly as possible. So we are out of time, and through our planned discussion. So I wanted to take the opportunity to thank, first and foremost, all of you for joining today's webinar. Thank you very much for joining. I also wanted to thank Rob, Roberts, and Rolana for your insights shared today. As I mentioned at the top, we will be sharing the recording to this webinar this afternoon. We also have a slate of webinars coming up in the next couple of months. So please keep an eye on your inbox for those invitations. But thank you once again, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you guys for joining.
Thanks
Goodbye.
for having me. Yeah, have a great day.
Thanks for having us. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.